The candle flickers once, then holds, a trembling bead of fire cupped by shadows on the cracked stone hearth. The breath of the wind rattles the door again but does not enter. It is still dark outside, though dawn has technically come. Inside, the scent of tallow and damp straw clings like second skin, and Eleanor presses the rag against her cut hand with more will than care. The vinegar stings. So does the soot. But there is no alternative. Pain is not a warning, it is a teacher. The hut stirs slowly. A cough from the far corner, where her mother lies swaddled in sackcloth and ache. The baby suckles noiselessly beside her, wrapped in linen browned with old stains and smoke. Eleanor watches the infant's tiny fingers clench and release, barely larger than the chickpeas they boil when fortunate. She turns away before the ache in her own belly, half hunger, half something she cannot name, tightens too far. The morning ritual begins. With a grunt, her brother emerges from his hay-piled bed, dragging the rusted iron axe to his side. The blade is notched, dulled from years of misuse, its haft wrapped in layers of worn leather. Once a boot, now a grip. He nods to Eleanor but says nothing. Words are wasted in the cold. Instead, he shoulders the axe and vanishes through the shuddering door, disappearing into mist and silence. Outside, the ground is frost-bitten, the fields cracked like the soles of their feet. Somewhere across the low hill, oxen are being yoked, leather straps groaning, hooves thudding into thawed mud. Crows wheel overhead, scavenging. Eleanor's breath curls visibly as she steps into the lightless morning. The sky is colorless. Time does not feel like it moves forward, it settles like ash. She walks to the well. It is not far, but each step pulls against muscle still sore from yesterday. The wooden bucket she carries is her family's only one. The handle splinters her palm. At the well, a neighbor nods, a hunched man with a twisted spine and eyes that flicker with half-welcome. They do not speak. Both understand the rule: draw, wait, walk. The rope grinds as she lowers the bucket. The pulley creaks. The water is foul today, streaked with floating straw and something darker. She pretends not to see. There are no choices in this life, only refusals. She lifts it, staggers slightly, and carries it back without spilling. Spilled water is lost life. Back in the hut, her mother is boiling oats, if it can be called that. The fire is low, fed by whatever could be scraped from last season's fallen twigs. A single bone, saved from a hare long since eaten, hangs in the broth like a promise too thin to fulfill. Eleanor sits, setting the bucket down. She watches the steam rise from the pot, its scent too faint to comfort. Add nettles, her mother says quietly, not looking up. Her voice is coarse from days without speech. Eleanor nods, moving to the herbs hanging by the lintel, dried bundles of stinging green that she crushes into the mix. She used to fear them as a child, until she learned their sting was minor compared to hunger. They eat in silence. A spoonful each, then another passed to the baby, who grimaces. Life is not taste, it is intake. Outside, the village begins to awaken. Hooves clatter, dogs bark, a woman shrieks at a boy for wasting straw. The village never truly sleeps. It endures, suspended between work and fatigue. At midday, Eleanor helps her brother repair a fence near the chicken run, though the birds have not laid in days. The wind cuts through their clothes, thin as parchment. When her hands begin to shake again, fever licking through the wound, her brother looks at her, brow furrowed, but says nothing. Instead, he hands her a strip of salted lard. Chew it, he says. It is not kindness. It is strategy. Salt draws sickness. Later, she visits the old woman near the abbey wall. A healer, some say. A witch, whisper others. Eleanor does not care. The woman's fingers are blackened from ink and ash. She places a smear of poultice on the wound, binding it with linen dipped in resin and honey. Sleep with it above your heart, she whispers. And no dreams tonight. Eleanor nods. The wind chimes above the door jingle, bones strung on gut wire. They sing a lullaby older than the abbey itself. By dusk, the family gathers again. The baby cries, a high, dry wail that catches in everyone's throat. Eleanor's mother rocks it gently, crooning in a mix of Latin and village rhyme. The candle flickers low but does not die. The shadows press close. Eleanor wraps her arms around herself, the fever dull now, her skin hot but her bones colder. Outside, the sky bleeds purple. Smoke coils from thatched roofs like breath from buried giants. Somewhere, a bell tolls, not for death, not for mass, but perhaps to remind them that time still turns. That night follows day, and tomorrow, if they're lucky, they will wake again. Eleanor lies on her straw pallet, the cut on her hand throbbing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She stares at the rafters, where spiders spin threads no one will sweep. Her mother coughs in sleep. The baby murmurs. Somewhere far off, a fox cries out, a raw, almost human sound. In the quiet, Eleanor whispers to herself, not prayer, not hope. Just a name. Her own. To remember that she is still here. The wind rustles the hut. The candle dies at last. And in the hush that follows, survival breathes softly, fragile as the thread between days, but still unbroken. See. A crack of leather against bare flesh echoes through the courtyard. It is not a scream that follows, but silence. A silence deeper than pain, older than pity. The boy, no older than 9, clutches the splintered edge of a trough as the bailiff's whip falls once more. Around them, chickens scatter, dogs bark, and somewhere, a woman hums a lullaby as she stirs lentils in a clay pot. No one stops the beating. No one even turns their head. This is justice. This is discipline. This is normal. The boy's crime. He stole a heel of bread, blackened, worm-bitten, and 3 days old. His mother had begged the baker's wife for mercy. The baker had none to spare. Hunger makes animals of men, and monsters of those with power. By mid-morning, the square resumes its rhythm. The market stalls rattle as shutters are flung open, and smoked eels swing from ropes like pendulums. Pigs snort through the mud, their bellies dragging, their eyes glazed and knowing. Beneath the wheelwright's awning, 2 men drink watered ale and discuss the price of a widow's dowry as though weighing sacks of oats. Behind them, the boy lies curled in straw, his skin welted, his eyes dry. You will not cry. Not now. These are the cruelties that do not shock, only shape. In the village, the weight of daily life is borne not in hours but in punishments endured, bruises hidden, duties performed without question. A girl no older than 12 kneels beside a stream, scrubbing her master's linen with bare, cracked hands. Her nails are blue with cold. A man walks by, eyes lingering too long. She does not look up. She has learned the rule. Silence keeps one safe. Behind the church, Brother Adric sharpens a scythe. The sound of metal on stone is rhythmic, meditative. He mutters prayers under his breath, but his mind wanders. Last night, a woman bled to death after birthing twins. They named the babes Hope and Mercy, but Hope died before sunset, and Mercy has not cried since dawn. The midwife is gone. The priest said it was God's judgment. Adric wonders if God weeps at all. In the thatched huts, beneath low rafters dark with soot, women wrap their daughters in wool and whisper about demons, not the ones in scripture, but those that live inside men when ale is strong and the night is long. They mark their doors with ash and salt. They teach the girls how to hide bruises with clover and lye, how to clean blood from a shift without tearing the threads. These are not secrets. They are inheritance. And yet, amid the bleak, there are rituals that still hold the shape of something sacred. A wedding feast, even when poor, fills the air with music made from spoons and stretched hide drums. Boys leap over bonfires at midsummer, their feet catching sparks. Girls wear garlands of rosemary and dance barefoot in circles until they fall laughing. These moments are rare but real, proof that the human heart, even in darkness, seeks rhythm and light. In the shambles where butchers work, the gutters run red. Children step over entrails as casually as stones. The stench is thick, blood, awful iron. Nearby, a tooth puller sets up his stool. A young woman sits down, gripping the wood. Her molar has festered for weeks. He smiles, revealing none of his own. She bites down on leather. The pliers twist. There is no anesthetic, no comfort. Just bone and will. By afternoon, the bell at the monastery tolls. A funeral. Another child. They bury them shallow, wrapped in linen if lucky, in nothing if not. The priest sprinkles holy water. The mother wails. Her sound is not a cry but a tearing, like cloth ripped from the loom of time. The villagers avert their eyes, then return to their tasks. The sorrow is familiar. Too familiar. Inside the chapel, a girl scrubs the altar steps. Her name is Isabeau. She is 11. She does not speak by choice or by trauma, none can say. But she watches. She sees everything. When the priest steps too close, when the novice boy weeps behind the sacristy, when the bees nest in the rafters and no one notices. Isabeau carves her thoughts into the underside of a pew with a fish bone. No one reads them. But she writes them still. At sunset, the village exhales. Carts creak homeward. Men return with sacks of barley, branches for fire, fish if the river was kind. The women draw water again, always again, and knead dough with hands that ache. A mother braids her daughter's hair by candlelight, murmuring the tale of a saint who survived beheading. The child laughs wide-eyed. It is a rare sound. A sound that does not last. In one hut, a man lies coughing, blood in his mouth. His wife sits beside him, fingers rubbing rosemary between cracked nails. The scent masks the rot. She speaks to him softly, not of heaven but of the bread they once shared, the cold cider, the spring wind. She speaks until his breath ceases. Then she keeps speaking. Grief is not always loud. The stars rise. The moon lifts her pale veil. The world grows still, but not silent. Rats scratch in the thatch. A woman sobs into her cloak. A child hums to herself to keep from dreaming. This is not a story of plague or war. It is not a tale of kings or crusades. It is the quiet terror of normal life in a world shaped by endurance and resignation. The daily crucifixions that left no saints, only survivors. And yet, in the breath between moments there is something else. A mother's hand brushing hair from a fevered brow. A child drawing shapes in soot. A boy, once beaten, placing his cloak over his sister's shoulders when the frost creeps in. It is not hope. Not yet. But it is memory. It is will. And that, too, is a kind of light, even in a world that forgets to look for it. The candle dies once more. But someone somewhere relights it. And tomorrow begins. Again. The wind comes first, not fierce but endless. It creeps beneath door frames and lifts the edge of a thatch roof like a thief with patient fingers. On the outskirts of the village, a girl named Liddy watches the linen flap on the line. Her fingers, reddened by lie, twist a sprig of mint between them. It is washing day but the sky has turned the color of old pewter, and she can smell what's coming, not just rain but hunger. For 3 weeks the bread has grown thinner. Barley grinds to dust between the millstones. The hens have stopped laying and the goat's milk has soured. Her mother says this is just how the seasons turn, that hardship follows harvest as surely as dusk follows noon. But Liddy is old enough now to see more than the sky. She sees her uncle's face drawn tighter each night, the cellar door checked twice, the corners of mouths that no longer smile during mealtime. At the village center the oven is cold. The baker's wife, once plump with cheer, now measures flour by finger pinches, guarding each grain like a relic. The bread she hands out on Thursdays is stretched with ground beans and bitter acorns. The crust cut the mouth. Still, the queue forms before first light, villagers standing silent as gravestones with empty baskets in hand. When famine begins it does not arrive with fanfare. It slips in like fog, nameless at first until the bones start to show beneath sleeves, until the children forget how to play. By the second month even the rats grow thin. Liddy watches as her brother, barely 6, chews the bark from a branch while pretending it's meat. Her mother catches his hand and smacks it gently. "Don't," she whispers. "The priests say the trees can hear us." The girl doesn't ask what that means. She simply files it away as all children do, another strange rule that governs survival. In the marketplace, a man sells boiled nettle soup from a blackened cauldron. The broth smells of feet and riverweed. People bring what they can in trade, old buttons, chipped knives, a belt of twisted wool. Nearby, a boy with hollow cheeks plays a flute made of bone. It is not a melody for joy but for memory, a tune that once meant springtime and now only echoes. Liddy's grandmother used to speak of the time when there was meat on Sundays. When fare stretched across fields and onions were roasted in ashes. Now the old woman sits in a chair by the fireless hearth, eyes turned toward nothing. "The Lord sends tests," she mutters. But he does not mark the answers. When the rains come they do not bless. They rot the barley sacks, turn paths into rivers of filth. Children slip and cough, and the healer's supply of horehound and licorice root runs out. In the chapel prayers rise like smoke, thin, ineffectual. A monk warns that it is sin that calls famine. That vanity, gluttony, and pride have brought this suffering. The villagers nod. None argue. None confess. Their bellies speak louder than any scripture. In the dark corners of barns strange things begin to happen. A stolen hen. A loaf gone missing. An apple orchard raided in the dead of night. No one accuses aloud, but eyes flicker. Trust becomes a currency even scarcer than salt. And then comes the whisper. A woman who knows too much about roots. A man who speaks to crows. An old widow whose garden still grows green. The word, which is not shouted, it is breathed like a curse or a prayer. Liddy watches as her neighbor, Agnes, is dragged from her cottage. They say her herbs are too strong, her gaze too long. They find a jar of fat rendered with lavender and claim it is devil's balm. No one stops them. Liddy hides behind a barrel, clutching her hands to her mouth as the woman is tied to the post, doused in cold river water and questioned by the reeve. Agnes says nothing. Her silence is red as guilt. Her stillness is treated as defiance. That night, smoke clings to the village like mourning cloth. The air tastes of ash and rosemary. Liddy tries to sleep, but dreams of mouths that never close, hands that never stop reaching. By the third month even the birds leave. In the empty fields, scarecrows rot on their poles, arms outstretched as if begging for alms from the heavens. Liddy helps her mother grind acorns and old peas into flour, adding bits of moss for texture. They boil the dough into dumplings. Her brother calls it soup bread, and laughs once, a thin high sound that makes her ache. One morning Liddy wakes to find the hens gone. Her uncle says nothing. But the next night a rabbit appears in the stew. She does not ask where it came from. Silence, like hunger, becomes second nature. In the chapel, someone leaves a loaf beside the Virgin statue, shaped like a child's foot, scorched on one side. It is an offering or a warning. No one claims it. But the next morning it is gone. As the frost begins to form on the edge of the well, the air sharpens. The villagers speak less. Even the gossip fades. Liddy watches her breath curl like smoke in the cold and wonders if this winter will end them all. But there is one day, only one, when a cart arrives from the Lord's estate. It carries sacks of rye and dried fish, coarse linen, and a single barrel of apples. The steward does not smile. He reads names from a scroll. Some receive. Some do not. When Liddy's name is not called, she does not protest. She simply watches as the barrel tips and a single apple rolls into the mud. She picks it up, wipes it clean and tucks it beneath her cloak. That night, she slices it thin and shares it with her brother. He eats slowly, savoring each bite like treasure. "Will we die?" he asks. She doesn't answer. Instead, she takes his hand, places it on her chest and says softly, "Feel that? That's still beating." So we go on. Outside, the wind howls through the shutters. The trees creak. But somewhere in the dark, an owl sings. And for one night it is enough. The blade of the axe sings through damp morning air, catching a low sunbeam and scattering dew like glass. The sound is neither cruel nor noble. It is simply life. In the clearing beyond the pigsty, 10-year-old Toma stands barefoot in the churned earth, watching his father split kindling. Steam curls from their mouths like smoke from small fires. He clutches a wooden pail full of animal entrails, the warm blood seeping through the cracks of the bucket. Today is butchering day, and to Toma, it smells like salt, metal and something old. This is the scent of a normal morning. Flies cling to the hog's carcass, already stiffened by the frost. His father wipes his blade on straw and mutters something about fat layers and salt barrels. Toma only half listens. His job is to collect the feet and snout and bring them to the kitchen shed, where his grandmother boils them into a thick gray stew. Nothing is wasted. Even the blood is caught in bowls, stirred with vinegar and oats into something called pudding, though it has never resembled sweetness. In the Middle Ages, death was not an interruption to life. It was braided into it. Food did not come from markets or sealed tins. It was raised, bled, gutted, skinned, and often while still warm from breath. Children did not flinch. They learned early that survival had no luxury of distance. If you wanted meat, you learned to listen to the pig's final scream and not cry. Inside the smokehouse, strips of flesh hang like parchment from blackened rafters. The air is thick with juniper and grease. A dog whines from beneath the bench, hoping for the knuckle bones. Grandmother snaps a finger and curses in dialect, a language older than prayer. Later, Toma walks to the stream with a sack of heads. His task is to toss them downstream so the bones will be cleaned by week's end. Skulls, stripped by current and crow, were carved into bowls or tokens. Sometimes sold, sometimes kept, sometimes buried beneath thresholds for good fortune. He kneels at the bank, the water biting at his toes, and releases the first with a slow exhale. "Float well," he whispers as if to a friend. Behind him the village churns. Women stomp linen in ash water. A girl picks lice from her sister's scalp while singing softly in Breton. A monk passes by, scribbling notes into a wax tablet, marking days and deaths. Bells toll not just for mass but to signal meals, punishments and curfews. In the medieval rhythm, everything is governed by sound. Iron on wood, hooves on cobble, wails behind closed doors. Toma returns in time to see his cousin beaten for stealing a hunk of cheese. The reeve delivers the punishment in the square, not out of cruelty but out of law. 20 lashes. Enough to sting. Not enough to scar. Children stand in a loose circle, eyes blank, used to the sight. Discipline is not questioned. It is taught like grammar or fire tending. That evening, the household gathers around a flame. They eat from a shared bowl, turnips, blood pudding and cracked grain. Toma chews on a strip of salted meat, hard as oak bark, and wonders if the pig knew his name. He has not spoken since morning. Not because he is sad, but because there is nothing to say. This is the world he was born into. And it does not wait for questions. His grandmother tells a story while mending a shoe. It is a tale of wolves that eat children who do not finish their chores. She laughs once, not cruelly but in a way that turns the story into warning. Toma nods, not from fear but from understanding. After supper, he scrubs the blood from his hands with lye soap, the scent of urine sharp in his nose. The soap is made from wood ash and fat. The sting tells him it works. Behind the shed, the bones of dinner lie in a heap, not buried, not burned, just left. By morning the crows will have picked them clean. Sleep comes early in the village. The hearth is banked. The embers are pressed under ash to keep for morning. Toma curls beneath a wool blanket that smells of lanolin and earth. Rats scurry in the thatch above. The darkness breathes around him. And then, the scream. Not a scream of murder. Not war. Not plague. Just a childbirth cry. His aunt is giving birth in the next room, squatting over a straw pallet while two women hold her hands and a third grips her hips. No walls between them. No privacy. Just thin reed partitions and the shared knowledge that birth and blood are the same river. Toma buries his face in the wool. He listens as the cry sharpens, breaks, and is answered by the slick, gasping sob of a newborn. Life pulled from a body. And all within earshot. By morning the baby will be named after a saint. Or a goat. Or whatever day it was born on. If it lives through the week there will be blessings. If not, there will be quiet. Before sunrise, Toma rises to fetch more water. The pail creaks, the wind slices through his tunic. In the fields, the crows pick over what's left of yesterday's scraps. A fox watches from the hedgerow. Another day. Another death. Another stew. This is not horror. It is not tragedy. It is routine. What was disturbing to us was ordinary to them. The sky is the color of old wool, heavy, low, stretched thin across the village like a lid pressing everything down. Beneath it, a man walks barefoot toward the gallows post, dragging a cart of manure with one hand and scratching at the boils on his neck with the other. The wind tastes of smoke and dung. He spits and keeps walking. This is not a scene of execution. Not today. This is punishment. At the edge of the square stands the pillory, splintered oak beams darkened by spit, mud, and blood. It creaks in the wind like a door that will not shut. A boy is locked inside, wrists and neck confined, face already streaked with last night's frost. His crime? Stealing a fish from the Lord's stream. His eyes are swollen with sleep, not shame. Around him, children laugh and toss clumps of earth. One throws a dead rat. There is no ceremony in this. No verdict read aloud, no final chance to speak. This is justice as lived, daily, blunt, unremarkable. In the Middle Ages, shame was public and punishment was performance. Stocks, pillories, cages, iron collars, all designed not to kill but to humiliate. To mark you. To remind your neighbors who you were and what you did. A baker who sold shortbread might have his ear nailed to his doorpost for a day. A woman accused of gossiping could be made to wear a scold's bridle, a metal mask that scraped the tongue and silenced the mouth. The goal was never mercy. It was memory. Today, an old man is marched through the square with a sign around his neck, thief of kindling. The ink runs with the drizzle. His hands are bound with ropes so thin it slices his skin. Children follow him with sticks, not from cruelty but because this is how they learn. Pain becomes a kind of scripture. Inside the church, not 20 feet away, incense curls toward the wooden beams. Candles flicker along the altar, where a priest chants Latin over cracked lips. Between each word, the sound of the boy moaning in the pillory leaks in like water through stone. No one stops the mass. No one comments. This is life, holy and brutal side by side. The village reeve, a man with a red belt and crooked teeth, leans against a post, watching the scene with a bland expression. It's not his cruelty that keeps the punishments going, it's his memory. He knows who owes what, who wronged whom, who has not bent the knee. Revenge in this world does not come through duels or war. It arrives in the form of fines, brands, or a morning in the square with your shame on full display. Beneath a nearby oak, a woman sits with a needle repairing a shift torn during childbirth. She glances once toward the pillory, then turns back to her work. Her fingers are red with cold and needle pricks. Her husband was flogged last winter for selling grain without permission. They had nothing left to eat for 3 days and their youngest died of fever. But he survived the lashes and now they work in silence. There is no rebellion. There is only continuation. That evening the boy is released. His wrists are raw. He does not speak. No one greets him. He walks home barefoot, his feet leaving faint red tracks in the mud. Behind him, the pillory creaks in the wind once more, ready for the next body, the next lesson. Across the field, a gibbet cage sways from a tall beam. Inside, the bones of a man hang like wind chimes. He was executed months ago, but the cage remains as warning. Ravens come and go. The bones do not speak. Inside the tavern, laughter erupts. The fire is bright. Bread is torn and passed in thick fingers. The same men who watched the boy suffer now toast to the harvest and tell stories of saints and beasts. One man jokes about a fellow who tried to poison a tax collector with a pie stuffed full of nightshade. They all laugh. This is not hypocrisy. This is compartmentalization, the art of enduring horror by normalizing it. The tavern girl, no older than 14, pours wine into wooden cups with the steady hand of someone who knows how to vanish inside herself. She learned not to flinch. When a man slaps her behind, she does not blink. She knows the rules. Knows who to laugh for, who to avoid. Survival is not always built with muscle. Often it's built with silence. Outside, the moon rises behind black clouds. A dog barks. Somewhere, a baby cries. In the village jail, little more than a pit with planks over it, a woman waits to be tried. Her crime is unclear. Perhaps she spoke too loudly at market. Perhaps she looked too long at the wrong man. The details don't matter. What matters is that she is alone in the dark, and the rats do not care who was guilty. At dawn, the cycle begins again. Bread is kneaded. Pigs are fed. The same square is swept clean. The same beams oiled. But the stain of yesterday remains, not in the wood but in memory. Children remember the boy in the pillory. The dog remembers the smell of blood. The woman remembers the sting of silence. And in that memory the Middle Ages persists, not as a time of monsters or miracles, but as a world where cruelty was a rhythm, and justice wore the mask of daily life. The smell hits first. Not rot, not entirely, but a thick, sweet heaviness that clings to the nostrils like wet wool. It is the scent of too many bodies in too little space, of bread gone sour, of wounds left to fester. Beneath it all, a fainter note, burning tallow and herbs meant to mask what cannot be cleansed. The street is narrow, barely wide enough for 2 carts to pass, and between the jutting timbers of upper floors no light falls. A rat scurries past, bold as a taxman. No one flinches. This is not plague. This is not war. This is simply living. In the shadow of cathedral bells and stone guild halls, the medieval city was alive, not with grace but with pressure. Too many voices, too many hands, too much need. Houses lean like drunkards, built haphazardly from memory and mud, their plaster bellies bulging over crooked beams. Beneath their floors the dead are buried shallow. Above, the living dream in fits and coughs. A boy wakes coughing, the phlegm thick in his chest. His mother, already at the hearth, stirs potage that smells of barley, wild garlic and something else, something scraped from the cellar with hope, not confidence. She hums a hymn. Not because she believes it but because her own mother did. Outside the gutters run thick with rain and filth. Chamber pots emptied from windows with a shout, "Guard is low." But no one really guards against it. The splash is part of mourning. Like roosters, like the grind of the baker's millstones, like the crack of a whip in the merchant's stalls. Illness walks these streets like a neighbor. Children here learn early that a cut can mean fever, that a chill in the bones might end in a priest's prayer. Pox marks the faces of girls too young to understand shame, and lepers ring tiny bells as they pass, a haunting melody of flesh undone. But life does not slow. It cannot. In the marketplace laughter blooms like mold, sudden, strange, persistent. A juggler tosses stones before an audience that stinks of tannery runoff. A fishwife slaps a thief with an eel. The scribe's apprentice coughs blood into his sleeve and keeps writing. Above it all, a physician walks in long robes, his mask beaked like a bird, stuffed with rose petals and camphor. Children stare, unsure whether to fear or laugh. His presence is ritual, part healer, part omen. No one here expects health. They expect resilience. A girl with one eye sells apples shriveled from frost. A monk with twisted legs limps through the square, dragging behind him a small cart of relics. Bones, rags, splinters of the true cross, each priced for desperation. The people gather. Some believe. Others only hope. In the bathhouse, steam rises like a ghost. Men and women share the water, their modesty surrendered to necessity. Boils are lanced, lice combed, sins confessed and ignored. Beneath the heat, strangers become brothers, if only for a moment. And when the heat fades and the cold returns, they dress again in clothes stiff with dirt, stepping into streets where rats dart and dogs limp. Every surface here tells a story. Every stain has a name. A midwife scrubs her hands with vinegar after another lost birth. Her shoulders sag, but she mutters the prayer just the same, tracing the cross into the air above the cooling child. Her assistant weeps. There is no burial today, the ground is frozen. Beside the tannery where hides are scraped and soaked in piss, a young man collapses from the fumes. The workers step around him. Later, when he rises, he will be changed, slower, quieter, with a tremor in his hand. But he will keep working. The cathedral bells toll again. Not for a feast, not for a wedding. For a fire. Down the narrow street, flames lick at thatched roofs. Buckets are passed hand to hand, children, elders, anyone who can hold. Screams blend with prayer, with curses, with silence. And when the fire is out and the ash settles on soot-blackened skin, they rebuild. They always rebuild. By night, the city breathes in darkness. Candles gutter behind oiled parchment windows. Lovers whisper behind doors that barely shut. A thief steps soft across the slate roofs, his shadow swallowed by chimney smoke. In a single room, a family of 7 sleeps on straw infested with mites. The father snores. The mother watches the stars through a hole in the wall, her fingers tracing the spine of her youngest. He wheezes. She listens. Counts. Waits for each breath. This is not despair. This is persistence. Because tomorrow the market will open again. The fish will arrive wrapped in seaweed and flies. Bread will be weighed with stones. News of war, famine, miracles, all will be exchanged alongside onions and nails. And the people, bruised, coughing, limping, laughing, will carry on. Because in the medieval city, normal was never gentle. But it was shared. And that made it survivable. The child is still. Her eyes, dark and wide, blink once against the rising smoke from the hearth. In her small hands she cradles a bone doll, its limbs uneven, its face worn smooth by time and tears. Her mother ties the girl's cloak with calloused fingers, lips moving in a silent prayer. Outside, the wind pushes at the door like a drunk trying to remember his way home. It is time to go. The procession begins at dawn. Not for worship. Not for wedding. But for burial. One child lost to fever. A boy. 7 winters old. His breath vanished in the night like mist from a cracked clay bowl. And yet, no wailing. No sackcloth. No outpouring. The grief is held tight and private like a coal in the breast, burning unseen. The villagers walk together in silence, each holding their own ghosts in their pockets. Grief here is so common it has no spectacle. A pit is dug beyond the hedgerow, in the ground that never truly thaws. The priest intones Latin verses, his words slurring in the cold. The child's body is wrapped in linen, no coffin, no coins for the eyes. Just a whispered blessing and a crooked wooden cross. The family turns away before the earth is filled. Death in the Middle Ages is not a stranger. It sleeps at the foot of every bed, sits beside every hearth, drinks from every cup. But what is more disturbing, more common than death, is what is done with the living. Children are born not into innocence but into usefulness. By 5 they gather firewood. By 7 they watch sheep, scrape hides, clean chamber pots. Play is not forbidden but fleeting. A laugh is a luxury. Most learn to swallow it by 10. The girl with the bone doll walks with her mother to the dye fields. There, vats of boiling urine steam in the wind. Cloth is soaked, pressed, wrung. Her small hands turn red in the cold. She does not complain. Beside her, another child stirs a vat with a wooden pole, his arms streaked with burns. His father, a fuller, yells instructions between coughs that come up thick with blood. The boy nods. He does not ask for rest. In the convents and monasteries, child oblates are brought to the cloister before they understand the vows whispered over their heads. Shorn of hair, given new names, taught to chant and kneel before they can write their letters. Some find peace. Others find silence so deep it becomes a second skin. In the homes of nobility, daughters are groomed like fine horses, taught to curtsy, to smile, to endure. By 12 a girl may be promised. By 13 a bride. Her hips not yet formed, her voice still high, her future already spoken for. One such girl sits beneath a window weaving golden thread into lace. Her maid tells her of her husband-to-be, 43 with lands in Aquitaine and a limp from battle. The girl nods. Her hands do not tremble. At night, the village gathers in the alehouse. There is song crude and joyful. A juggler makes fools laugh. But in the corner, a boy no older than 9 drinks from his father's mug. He winces at the bitterness. The others cheer. He is becoming a man, they say. Becoming in this world means hardening. A girl who bleeds for the first time is told she is now a woman. She is handed rags, not comfort. Advice, not affection. She washes her own linens behind the cottage, alone. It is a quiet rite, not celebrated, not named. When a child is born, the midwife checks its breath with a feather. If it stirs, there is relief, not joy, not yet. Joy must be earned through survival. Through winters. Through plagues. Through hunger. Because hunger is a teacher. In bad years, bread is made with bark and ash. Mothers boil nettles and moss. Children chew dried leather softened in milk. Infants suckle at breasts that have run dry. And when a child dies, another is conceived. Not as replacement but as insurance. One must understand this. Love existed here, deep and fierce, but it was not soft. It could not be. A father shows love by repairing his son's shoes with stolen leather. A mother shows love by saving the last strip of salted meat for her daughter. A brother shows love by taking his sister's punishment at the hands of a cruel steward. The child with the bone doll sleeps near the hearth that night, the doll tucked beneath her chin. Her mother watches her from the shadows, knitting by candlelight with fingers cracked and bleeding. She hums the same tune her own mother sang when the wolves howled near the village gates. Outside, the stars gleam like cold eyes. Somewhere in the woods, a child cries for a mother who will never return. No one goes to find her. Because in the Middle Ages, what is most disturbing is not what was done with cruelty, but what was done as custom. And the children, small, silent, watchful, carried that truth in their bones.